Okay, we're up to the new parak. A lot of these halachas that we're going to see, we learned already. You go back to the sugya of what a father gets, what a husband gets from his wife, right? So we said that he gets ma'asiyadeha because of mezainis. He gets mitzia because of eva, mishum eva, that he shouldn't create discord in the marriage. So we can discuss those halachas and others. Says the Mishnah on Chaf on Samechet Amid Beis. Mitzias the Isha who ma'asiyadeha, and anything a woman finds or with the workings of her hands, l'bayla they go to the husband. The Yerushasa, right? The Yerushasa who oichel peris b'chayeha, and Yerusha he eats the peris right in the night. Rashi says im naflo Yerusha, if a Yerusha falls, right? If Yerusha falls, he eats Paris. Karen Shella, and the Karen belongs to her. Right. Okay, so therefore, this is in Rashi's first lashon, it's speaking about nichsei milok situation. That if she gets Yerusha, he eats the Paris. Now, this adin of nezek tsar ripui shebes and baishes. If a person damages another person, he has to pay nezek. The worth that a person is worth less. We call that also pigam. Tsar, the tsar one undergoes. Sheves, disability. Ripoy, doctor bills. And boishes, an embarrassment. So let's say a woman is damaged. So the tsar goes to her. The husband experienced tsar, she would get the tsar. The disability, the sheves, and the ripoy, and the doctor bills, well, that he has to pay, right? So that he would get that. Whatever he collects from the mazik, he would get. Question is, what about the pigam? What about the nezek, that she's worth less in the slave market? And what about the boishes? Who gets that? Who gets the pigam? Who gets the boishes? So that's the machlokas. Upigama. Upigama. Upagama and her nezek. Boishtu Upagama Shalah. Tanakama says it goes to her. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says, Bisman Shebeseser, if the wound is in a hidden place, la, Shnei Chalakim, v'lai echad. 2/3 go to her and 1/3 goes to him. Ubisman Shebegolui, and if it's on the face in an area that can be seen, then loy shnei chalakim, he would get 2 chalakim, v'lo echad, he would get 1. So and she would get 1. Shaloi yinasim miyad, he gets his immediately. Who shaloi yilakach ben karka, with hers you buy karka, v'loichel peris needs peris. So machloikis between Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and Tanakama, the boishes and the nezek, according to Tanakama goes to her. According to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira goes to both. And the ratio of 2/3 to 1/3 would depend upon where the wound on the body is. If it's in a closed area, it goes to her, 2/3. If it's in an open area, 2/3 go to him. That's the mission. Now, Fred the Gemara, the obvious question is, my kamash malon tanina. We learned this already. Ha'av zake bebitoi, the woman, she's zoicha in his daughter, b'kedushaseha the kesef kedushin, as beating the sati yishazeh, b'shtar, ha'makish all havayas la'adodi, u'bibia, zakai b'metziasa, mishameva, u'maisiyadeha, because of mizainis, again, we said kol Rabbi Savia, right? We said uba forest nedareha, mikava eskita, the eino echel peris bechayeha. Nisei, she gets married. Yeser love abal, the bal gets more than the father. Shoichel peris bechayeha, boishtu pagama. So what the chayra? Fred the Mishnah, the Gemara. What is the Mishnah telling me by the mitzia and the isha and the ma'asiyadeha that it goes to the husband? We know that already. We learned it already. And for the Gemara, what we didn't learn is boishtu pagama etzrichle. The chiddush is for the nezek and the boishes that plugged Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Rabbanan. This machloikis, whether it goes to her or it goes to shared between Him and her, that's the machlokes. That's what, in other words, einachinami. The ratio of the Mishnah regarding Ma'aseh, regarding Mitzia, there is no chiddush. That we know already. But the chiddush of the nezek, the pagam, and the boishes, who goes to the machlokes, 2/3 to third, or totally to her, that is the chiddush of the Mishnah. Says the Gemara Vaita, Tani Tana Kamed Rava, or a side of Bryce is said in front of Rava, Mitzia Seisha Le'atzma. A woman finds something, it goes to her. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Lebaila goes to the husband. So apparently Rabbi Akiva is the Tana of Mishnah. Amalek doesn't make any sense. Amalek. Uma hashta. Amalek hashta. Uma hadafa. Guys, we know that we saw yesterday that, or actually 2 days ago, we saw that how much is the Ma'aseh Deha? It's the 5 shkalim worth that she would get for 5 shkalim of Shesi, wool, and Yehuda. That's the amount. Anything more than that, we called hadafa. We said if the husband gives her a ma kesef, he would get the hadafa. However, ma hadafa the Ma'aseh Deha he. Listen, uma hadafa the Ma'aseh Deha he. Hadafa is part of the Ma'aseh Deha, and Amar Rabbi Akiva le'atzma. Rabbi Akiva says that goes to her. Mitziyasa like kol shekain. Now, what's more mistaber to say it goes to the husband, the mitzia or the Ma'aseh Deha? Clearly, it's the Ma'aseh Deha. He's providing her mizonos in lieu of I'm providing I'm providing for you mizonos. I'm supporting you. In lieu of that, you're giving me what? You're giving me your Ma'aseh Deha. You're giving me the works. You're giving me Ma'aseh Deha. Okay, for the strange man that just joined, Samich Vav Amin Aleph. Pleasure to see my chavrusa of many. Anyway, it's an appropriate shimon. It says mitzia. We begin the parak of mitzia. I just found the mitzia. Anyway, so on Samich Vav, guys, it says mitzia. The mitzia is. Okay. Back to train of thought, guys. Watch. Look at me. Look at me. What is more mistaber to say that belongs to the husband? Ma'aseh Deha, the extra of Ma'aseh Deha, or the mitzia? Clearly, the Ma'aseh Deha. Why? Because regular Ma'aseh Deha goes to the husband, so the hadafa is an extension of that. And yet, Rabbi Akiva says the hadafa goes to her. So if the hadafa goes to her, then certainly the mitzia, which has less of a shaykhis to the husband, should go to her. Right? It makes sense. Again, he had nothing before. The hadafa is an extension of Ma'aseh Deha, which goes to him. And yet Rabbi Akiva says that hadafa goes to her. So certainly mitzia, which had no shaykhis to him, goes to her. So again, we're questioning. You said Rabbi Akiva says labaila. We're asking on that. How can you say it goes labaila? If Rabbi Akiva holds the hadafa goes to her, certainly the Ma'aseh, certainly what? The mitzia goes to her. Rabbi Akiva la'atzma mitziyasa like kol shekain did nan. How do you know, guys, that the hadafa? How do you know hadafa goes to her? Did nan koinim shani oisa lepich. Whatever I make is koinim to him. In other words, she's making her Ma'aseh Deha asur on her husband. It's asur on the husband. Einet tzarich lahafer. He doesn't have to be mafrit because it's meshubah to him. It's not in her power to go ahead and asur on him because it's his. You can asur something that's yours. You can't asur on somebody something that's not yours. So therefore, he doesn't have to take it off. Rabbi Akiva Omer, no. Yefer, he has to take it off. He has to be made for the neder. You know why? Shemet hadibalav yoisim in aroyla. Maybe she'll make more money than the 5 slayim of Shesi and Yehuda. So what do you see? It belongs to her. When he requires hafara to remove it, it must be it was in her power to asur. Yes, it must be in her power to asur. So therefore, you're required to go ahead and get rid of it. So we've proven what, guys? We'll follow the paper trail. We've proven that what? That hadafa belongs to her. So if hadafa belongs to her, kol shekain mitzia belongs to her. Because Ma'aseh Deha has more shaykhs and it still belongs to her. Okay. Ella epech, switch it around. Mitzia seisha lebaila, Rabbi Akiva oimer la'atzma. Rabbi Akiva says, you're right. A mitzia, that a woman finds a mitzia, she would get to keep the mitzia. She would get to keep the mitzia because of the svara of hadafa. Read the Gemara. Look, Hiyasa Ravim and Ravim came from Eretz Yisrael. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. He said, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Behadafa Shelo Yadei Adchak, something that she didn't have to work very hard for. In other words, she made some extra money, but it was with no sweat whatsoever. Everyone says it goes to the husband. And even if it's over more than the 5 sloyim of Shesi Yehuda, it still goes to the husband. Why? Of course, it wasn't any big deal. Ki pligi, where's the machloikis between Rabbi Akiva and the Tanakama? By the neder you made, whether it's chal or not. Where she had to go ahead and take 2 jobs and work a night shift. You know, when she sweated for that. Tanakama Sava Labailit still goes to the husband. Rabbi Akiva Sava La'atzma. And Rabbi Akiva says it goes to her. So guys, mitzia is more comparable to what? To working for something or not working for something. In other words, would it be al yedei adchak or shlo yedei adchak? I would say mitzia is shlo yedei adchak. I'm walking along the street and shine, Paris Mifzarim. I find the Paris scattered, right? In other words, so very good. So Kasha, Fred Gemara Kasha. If everyone agrees, even Rabbi Akiva, that hadafa shelo yadei achak goes to the husband, why would he hold mitzia goes to the wife? After all, mitzia is comparable to ma'asiyah deha sheloi al yedei achak without working too hard. It makes sense. And for the Gemara, Amar Papa, no. Mitziyasa kehadafa shal yedei achak dami. And pluked the Rebbe Akiva Rabbanon. No, you're making a mistake. Mitzia is not shelo yadei adchak. Mitzia is al yedei adchak. The mitzia we're speaking about is not the mitzia that you're walking along and you're finding in the street. It's mitzia that you work to find. Look at Rashi, guys. Umeshani amrav papa mitziasa ka'adafa shal yedei adchaki. The roiv mitzias sarich lachsach reim. Most mitzias you have to go find. Kigoin dogim shinisharu biyabasha, dogim that came out of the water. Tzvi shavar, or you're looking for a deer that's limping. Lechapesh sima bekarka, you're looking for sima, you're looking for a treasure in the karka. You know those guys going on the beach with those metal detectors? They're trying to figure it out, right? So the mitzvah we're speaking about is a mitzvah in Yiddish. We say mezuchtas. You're looking for it. So that's al yedei adchak. The Mela Rabbi Akiva holds al yedei adchak. It's taka. Hadafa would be similar to what? Hadafa yedei adchak goes to what? Her. So therefore, it's not a kasha. Now, just a side point. She's working, what's shelo yedei adchak? She's working, let's say, a few jobs. And it's really no big deal. Simultaneously, she's getting paid to do 2 things, or 3 things, or 4 things. What's the din? It's going to say teku. Says Boira Papa, Asal Shtayim Basach has 2 jobs at the same time. Mahu. In other words, until now we're saying Shlei Yadei Adchak means in 1 job. What about if she's doing 2 jobs simultaneously? All right. Boirava, Shlei Shlei Dalu Basach has 4 jobs or 5 jobs. Mahu Teku. Now, how's it possible to do 4 separate jobs at the same time? Look at Rashi, guys. The fascinating Rashi. Shtayim Shalish V'Arba Basachas Shemerish Kishuim. She's watching cucumbers. V'Tavis Pishtin. While doing that, she's spinning pishtin. And she's running a singing lesson. And she has eggs on her lap. Or these are silkworms. The nashim would heat up the cocoons. The chekon. Fascinating. When they would go ahead and be born. So in other words, a woman could talk about multitasking, guys. Multitasking 4 things. What would it then be? Since it's 4, is that considered al yedei adchak, or it's considered shlo yedei adchak? Because it's not that hard. So the Gemara remains take it with that shaila. Okay, Baisha Supigam, we said it's a machloikus between the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. What did Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira say, guys? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said, if it's in a makom that is goloi, then she gets 2/3 and he gets 1/3. If it's a makom that is beseser on a face or where you could see it, he would get 2/3. The question is, why is he getting anything if she's getting embarrassed? In Svara, you hear clearly, just like tsar, There's no machlokes. If she gets damaged, the tsar goes to her. L'chayre the busha. Where's the busha to the husband that he's collecting? So, like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who says he collects, we want to know why you're collecting something. That's the Gemara's kasha. Fred the Gemara, boishtu pegama, maskiv l'rava barav chanan, elamayata, bayish susas le'shel chaveiroi. If you're telling me that it's shayich busha, and you to collect busha through another object. So the Gemara facetiously says, if you embarrass a horse, hachanami the boil the meeting lay boishes, you embarrass somebody's horse, you're going to get boishes. In other words, if it's not you directly, why are you collecting boishes? So embarrass the guy's horse. So the Gemara says, about bisha, so the obvious answer. You know what? You're wrong. It's not a good sushtel. A woman is a barbisha and a sus is not. If you spit on your friend's garment, you're going to say you do after. It's not true. But in Mishnah in Perek HaChayvel, rokak, if you spit boy and the spit hits the person, all right. You go ahead and take a woman's hair sheitel off in the street. The hever b'talisa mimenu, a person's clothing in the street. You have to pay 400 meyazuz, a lot of money. That alspusha. Yomra Papa, Loishanu Ela boy. That's only if the spittle hits him directly. Avlo big if it just hits his beged potter, right? So l'chayra, but according to you, that you chayiv in the isha, the beged as well, you should be chayiv. It says no big doy less zilusa. By beged, there's no zilusa, there's no cheapening. Ishtoy islay, change the gersa. Islay zilusa. When a person's wife is embarrassed, he's embarrassed as well. Says the Gemara, Amalei Ravinu Ravashi Elamayata Bayish Ani Ben Toivim. If you're telling me the Ani ben Toivim, there's a prestigious family. He had an Ani ben Toivim. He was an Ani. The Islay Zilusa Lekula b'nei Mishpacha. There's Zilusa to the whole Mishpacha. Achanami the boy liting boishes l'chol b'nei Mishpacha. You'd have to pay the Mishpacha. Look at Taisus, guys. Three Taisus enough. Ani ben Toivim the Islay Zilusa l'chol b'nei Mishpacha. Shaleim l'shoimrei min hamakim. It's upon them to watch from the people who hamakim I say. In other words, this person is he's in a state of he's compromised because he's a nani, so he needs protection. So aval ashir ben toivim she'en aleim lishmar esay emis vaishon alav b'nei mishpacha. In other words, Taisus is pointing out why dafka an ani and not an usher of that particular mishpacha, and he's answering because when you have a certain person, an ani, each person in mishpacha has a certain commitment and chiyuv to go ahead and watch. So you're telling me that once you can go ahead and do one, so you're going to have to pay the whole mishpacha baishes. And for the Gemara, no, it's not true. Amalei, hasam lav gufayu. It's not his body. Hacha ishtu gufayu habe. We know the concept of pasuk of ishta ki gufa. Your wife will always remind you that ishta is ki gufa, correct? So Memela, when she gets embarrassed, you're getting embarrassed. So it's not comparable to horses. It's not comparable to avodim, begadim. It's not comparable to even another person in mishpacha. If your brother gets embarrassed, you're not getting boishes. If your mother gets embarrassed, you're not getting boishes. If any other person, it doesn't make a difference. If your child gets embarrassed, you're not getting the baishas. Who's getting the baishas? The whole machlokes, only Isha, because Isha care ufay. Okay, we've been dealing with the halachas of ksuba. We know the concept of the ikka ksuba, 200 for a psula, 100 for what? For an almana. We know Tosefes ksuba, that the husband could write in extra. And we spoke about in the dunya. In the dunya, the dowry that you begin. We spoke about it, particularly by the Kesuvos bun and dichrin, that in order to facilitate that the father will give a nice dowry to the wife, it was written in the Kesuba that if the girl dies, that her children will get it even before they'll inherit the Kesuba. That would go. We said it's only a karka, but again, that was the purpose. So what happens if let's say the husband dies? Let's say the husband dies. So she would get the nedunya. She would get it back. Whatever she brings into the marriage, she would get back. Okay? Says the Mishnah. Someone goes ahead and he says to his brother, his son-in-law, he gives him a large, whatever he gives, he gives. Umeis chasanoi, and his son-in-law dies. His son-in-law dies. Amru chachamim, and there's no children, and she's falling to ibum. Yachahu sheyomer la'achicha. He's able to tell the brother of his son-in-law, Hayisi roitza la'achicha Hayisi roitza litain, v'lucha ein efshi litain. I don't want to give it to you. Again, if normal situation, the Nedunya would go to the wife. But over here, she has no children. So she is falling to what? To the brother-in-law. One thing you all remember from Masechta Yavamis is that the brother-in-law goes ahead and collects. The brother-in-law goes ahead and collects, right? Says the Mishnah Chiddush that guess what? He wouldn't collect because he possibly could say what? He possibly could say, I don't want to give to you. Now, this is a huge Chiddush. I'll tell you why. This kinyan that it goes to him is nikne ba'amira. So I would say the following. As soon as he gives the Nedunya and they got married, he inherited the rights to that Nedunya. When he dies, why doesn't it revert to his brother? Since his brother's inheriting him, why doesn't the brother inherit it? Why does he, the father, retain the right to go ahead and refuse the Yavam? L'chayra, he lost that right already because he was kind of Ba'amira. When he died, his brother was Yerush him. Why doesn't the brother, the live brother, inherit what? The Nedunya. Why doesn't it the Nedunya? So it's so interesting because I was sitting on I had a few minutes today. It was Min Shemayim. And I was sitting and a person moved and I bought a Yerushalmi for him. I bought a Yerushalmi, got a great deal in an art school Yerushalmi. I've opened it twice. The second time was today. And I opened to this Gemara and he asked the Kasha. He partially asked the Kasha. And he says, a beautiful teretz. Listen to what the Yerushalmi says. Says the Yerushalmi, V'tiritz, Shaminon, Shekol Mashu Pasik, Hurak Al Manash Yichnois. That he's Pasik to give the son-in-law, it's on a condition. On the condition that what? That there's Nesuin. Like Chonis, if he never got married, Ein Chayiv Litein. Ubir Rishon Kavanasai. Even though he never said beferish, this is yours, almanas, that you get married, in other words, if there never was Nesuin over here, there was only Erison, he died by Erison, the dowry was only to facilitate Nesuin. Since there was never Suin, there's an unspoken condition that what? You're not getting it unless there's Nesuin. Since there was never Nesuin, you never inherited. Since he never inherited, it's not falling to his son, his brother. It's not falling to his brother. That's the first din of the Mishnah. That's the first din of the Mishnah. The next din of the Mishnah is a fascinating din. Now, we know when you're going to get right a ksuba, the Nedunya, in Pashtus, the ksuba is not going to be collected for a long, long time. They could be married for many, many years. So let's say they write a Nedunya for $1,000. That's $1,000. So 20 years from now, $1,000 is not worth that amount of money. There's always the inflation. We know that it takes away. So what do we do with that? So listen to we're going to have, it seems to be repetitious, but we're going to see a few cases. It says the case. Oh, just one more thing. When in biblical mathematics, when we go ahead and say a third, a fifth, we always go shlish lebar, not milagav. So, for example, guys, if you have 100, right? If you're gonna say it's a third, then it would be 133 and a third. You'd go ahead, take 100, divide it by a third, and you would just go get 33 and a third. That's called shlish legav. That's an inner shlish. There's an outside shlish. The outside shlish means you take that the denomination and you add a third to the existing denomination. So on 100, it's 50-50. You would add a third as a 50. So shlish milagav would be 133. Shlish milagav would be 150. So we always do shlish is a shlish or chamisha, whatever it is always going to be by taking that, dividing it up. If it's a fifth, you're going to divide it into 4 and add a fifth. If it's a third, 2 and 1. Okay, with that in mind. Pascal hachnaslei elef dinar. He says, going to bring into the marriage. She's going to give him to Nedunya elef dinar. Who paisik kinegdon chamesh esrei. He goes ahead and writes in the ksuba, when I return it, I'm going to return to you what? I'm going to return to you 1,500. Again, this is a fifth more, right? You're taking 1,000, you're dividing it up into 4 parts, and for each one is going to be 500. Right, 4 or 500, and you can add 1, so that's 1,500. again, there is also an advantage of money. You can use money right away. Money is usable right away, and it's a big advantage. Mana ukeneged ashum. You're bringing in an object. You're not bringing in cash. You're bringing in an object, and there's an evaluation. Who poisik pachas chaimish. He's right. He's going to go ahead and give less. So let's say she brings furniture that's been assessed at 1,000. 1,000. So you can go ahead and deduct it pachas chaimish. Pachas chaimish. So it's going to be. It'll be 1,000. It'll be 800. 1 second. So 4 would be what? He's less a fifth. So let's say he bring, let's say 1,000 less a fifth. How would it be 800? Why say Rashi says 800? I'm trying to figure that in a second. Why did I have it today? Shimon, might you help me out? Let me buy like Moisev el Shapocheshim Echnisa Shum Shel Elef Dina who Kaisev Ches Meyazuz. He goes ahead, he gives 800. Okay, so each of 5, okay, it's 5 parts, right? So 5 parts is 200 pieces. So you got it. Okay, I got it. It's 5, you're adding a 6, right? I'm sorry. So let's say you have 5 parts, right? Out of 1,000, 5 parts is 200 a piece. If you do one, if you deduct one of that, it's going to be 800. Why is that? So Rashi says there's 2 reasons. One, if it's an object, it's going to get worth less. In other words, and whatever it is, it works less over time. Furniture gets worn. Whatever it is, it's going to get less. So when time comes to pay up the ksuba, he's not going to pay what it's worth then. He's going to pay what it's worth at the time of the collection. Another shot is it's not an accurate evaluation. That at the chasna, when they evaluate these things, they always evaluate it higher because they want to go ahead and show how benevolent the father of the collar is. So it's not a true evaluation. So if they say 1,000, it's really only worth 800. So 2 pshatim. Either it's something that's going to be worth less, and even if it's something that does not go ahead and degenerate over time, it's not an accurate assessment of what it was really worth, right? It wasn't an accurate assessment of what it's really worth, and therefore it's you're going to give less. Okay. Next thing, a shum of a mana. If the evaluation of a mana, but it didn't take place at the chasna, guys, then v'shav a mana, ein la mana. Then he only get 100. Shum b'mana. If you evaluate 100, he no send a shloshim ve'echet sela. In other words, the 100 really is going to be 125, because as we said, we're going to add a fifth, which is what shloshim ve'echet dinar. The 100 is 125. There's 4 dinarim there's 4 dinarim in a sela. So you go ahead and divide 4 into 125, gives you 31 and 1 dinar. Uba arba meyos, and if it's arba meyos, he no senes chamesh meyos. 400, you're going to write in the ksuba 500, and finally, Masha Chosim Paisik, who Paisik Pachos Chamesh, whatever he goes ahead and writes, he's going to write less than 5. Seemingly, we just repeated the same din 4 times. We'll see. I put a little chart up. We'll see it in a second. In the first case, guys, in the first case where the chassan that the father-in-law says he wants the first chassan and not the second chassan. So you don't need to tell me where the first guy was a Talmud Chacham, and therefore he doesn't want to give the nedunya. Even the first one, the dead son was an Amaretz, was Sheni Talmud Chacham. The second was Talmud Chacham. He could say, to him, I wanted to give it, not you. In other words, he could say that. So now we basically said the Mishnah. We said the din 4 times. We said the din in 4 different ways, guys. Right? We said Keneged Hashem Poiches Chaimesh. Then we said if it's a mana, in other words, it's really 125. She gives 31 and a third. Then we said Daled Meyos, you give 500. And Chasid's Paisek, when he writes in, he diminishes by Chaimesh. Okay, that's the 4 lashonos we had in the Mishnah. Basically, we're saying the same thing. So the Gemara wants to know why you're telling me the same thing. So the Gemara gives the following teretz. You want to tell me Shuma Rabba v'Shuma Zuta. You want to tell me this was a large amount of money. This was 1,000 dinarim, and this was a mana, was a little bit of money. So you tell me a large shuma, a little shuma. Over here, you tell me Dalad Meyas Nisenes is Hashuma. Chosin Paisek is his Shuma. So you told me Shuma Rabba, Shuma Zuta, Shuma Didei, Shuma Dida, and this was him, this was her, and this was him. Okay, let's see it inside. Pascal Hachmazel Elfina, Hainu Reisha. So that's the Reisha. It says Tana Shuma Rabba, look at Tani Shuma Zuta, Tani Shuma Didei, the Tani Shuma Dida. So the four cases are all reflected. The first case Shuma Rabba, the next one Shuma Zuta, Dalad Meis was this, and she's believed Shuma. That's her Shuma. This is Shuma Didei. Okay, that's all she wrote. Says the Mishnah, Pascal hachnas like Safim, then we're going to repeat the same din. If you win it, you're going to go ahead and bring in cash. So we said in our Mishnah, if you're going to bring in 1,000, you write 1,500. Salah, now Salah is 4 dinarim. So what do you write in? Nase Shisha dinarim. Again, what are you doing? The same thing. You're going, you're adding another part, right? 4 dinarim, you're adding 2. Hachasim mekabel of esrim dinarim lekupa. The chasim mekabel asara dinarim 10 dinarim for each kupa of makeup. L'chol mano mano. For every mano of makeup, he says asara. We'll see what that means in the Gemara. Rav Shmuel Leimer hakol committing amadina. Rav Shmuel Gamliel's machloikis, is he only going on this Mishnah, or is he going back on the whole parak? In other words, this din we said about adding a fifth or deducting a fifth that is according to one Farish, he's arguing on that also. Everything goes in Medina, or no, he's only arguing this regarding the makeup. It says, "Hainu price the connected chamish esrei mana." Is the exact same case, guys. Just like over there, you took 1,000 and you made it 1,500. So if you take 4 more, it becomes 6 more. So what's 6 dinarim? 4 dinarim becomes 6 dinarim. So what's the chiddush? There's the Mara, Tani Iska Rabba, but Tani Iska Zuta. You learn a big business deal and a little business deal. The tzrichi, you have to tell me both businesses. The Tani Iska Rabba, if you tell me just the big business deal, the Nafish Ravcha, because there's a big profit margin over there, therefore he has to give more. Aval Iska Zuta, where it's a small profit margin, the Zuta Ravcha, a Maloi, I would say he doesn't have to go ahead and he had more. He doesn't have to write more in the Ksuba. So tzricha, tell me he still writes. Biashmin and Iska Zuta, you tell me the small business deal, the Zuta, Ziyuna, the expense is little, therefore you write it in. Aliska Rabba, the Nafis Ziyuna, where the expense is great, and maybe I say he doesn't write it in. So tzricha, no, and even there he has to add on to the dunya. Achasim Mekabel of Asara Dina Rekupa. My Kupa, what Kupa are we speaking about? Ravashi, Kupa Shel Besonim, but speaking about makeup, a box of makeup. Ravashi, like Nemru Devarim Halalu Ela B'Yushalayim. These things are only said in Yerushalayim. Fascinating Taisus, guys. Like Nemru Devarim Halalu Ela B'Yushalayim. Mashma, perfume, and other makeup is said in Yerushalayim. Vadamina Perek Taraf Bekalpi. Shlei Hoysa Kalat Tzvichel is Boisem B'Yushalayim Mifnei Reach HaKetayris. Right? In other words, the Ketayris was so powerful, it was unnecessary to put on perfume. Frek Tais is a kasha, so why would a woman in Yerushalayim need makeup? L'chayra, you had perfume from the Ketayris. And for the Gemara, Vadi l'reich lehayat tzrichas this bison. They didn't need perfume. Aval tzrichas hayu l'kupa shel besamim la'adei nabasar, to make the skin more glistening. Ula heser haseyer, to remove unwanted hair. Ula pashit hab'ktamim, and to smooth out the wrinkles. It's amazing, nothing changed, right? Smoothing out wrinkles. This was written in the Middle Ages, written in this, guys. So in other words, they needed a makeup. So they didn't need perfume, they needed makeup. They didn't need perfume, they needed makeup. Fascinating. Says the Gemara Vaita. Says the Gemara Vaita. Achasin, where am I? I got lost. We said only Yerushalayim, right? Next. Boy Ravashi. Bimona hanishim or bimona hamiskabel? Are we speaking about the mana that was evaluated, or the mana that was written in the ksuba? In other words, you go after, let's say, in the first case, the 1,000 or the 1,500. Imtim slayim mana hamiskabel, but he received upon himself. Yom Rishon, I call Yom V'Yoim. Imtim slayim kol Yom V'Yoim. Shabbos Rishon, only the first week, or call Shabbos Shabbos each week. Imtim slayim kol Shabbos Shabbos. Chodesh Rishon, I call Chodesh v'Chodesh. Imtim slayim kol Chodesh v'Chodesh. Shana Rishona, I call Shana v'Shana. The Gemara says take. Now Rashi says he doesn't understand this order. He goes through a different order. And the biggest question is, if you're going to have to provide a mana for every 10, you'll be bankrupt. If it's every day, every week, you'll be bankrupt. So what's going on over here? So let's see Taisros. There's many questions on these bias. Esadina l'chol mana v'mana. Esadina for each mana. There's 100 mana. There's 10 dinar in a mana. You're giving a tenth. You're going to go ahead quickly and lose all the money. The esadina yitain la l'chol mana. Esadina l'chol mana liskashe la'olam. In other words, it's a one-shot deal. For every mana, you're going to give esa, but it's only la'olam. Not. And we buy the shayla is im yitain la b'vasachas. You give that at one time. He tishmareno liskashe boy, and she'll watch it until it's finished. When we sham ve'elach en kitzva l'tachshitin, there's no set amount. V'yitin l'fikfoida, and you give according to her prestige. Or you don't give her b'vasachas. El kedei kishut eliyoim. So Taisus learns the pshat is you're only giving X amount. Do I give that X amount when at one time, or I break it up? But certainly you're not going to give that X amount every day, or every week, or every month, or every year even, because again, then you'd be bankrupt. So that's very clear. Taisus makes the whole thing clear. Rabbi Yudam Maisa. Rav. Very sad story. Again, Kisses Abesos, Nakdim and Ben Gurion, and Nakdim and Ben Gurion and Kalba Savua, the three richest men in Yerushalayim. Gemara in Gittin says that enough to go ahead and supply for over 20 years until they burnt down their warehouses. The siege would have outdone the siege of the Romans until the Bryonim burnt it down. Nakdim Ben Gurion later listen to what happened to his family. Amarav, Ma'aseh bebita shel Nakdim Ben Gurion shepasku loy chachamim arba me'as lehuvim lekupa shel besamim. They provided for her 400 huvim, 400 golden pieces for besamim, for makeup. Lebay bayayim. Amar lehem kach tifsaku lebay. So should be to your daughters. But anu achreo amen, and the answer amen. So we had the same Gemara, and we said they didn't answer amen. They didn't answer amen, and we said over there because the Gemara said because she was shemeres yavam, and they didn't want to go ahead and wish upon themselves the same scenario of that they should be shemeres yavam. So Rashi says over here she was a widow, but she had children. And Shittim Gubetzis learns since death is inevitable, so they answered amen. They didn't consider it a curse that she was a widow. However, look at the bottom Tosfos. V'anu achreha amen. L'maylo loy anu achreha. After they didn't answer amen, shleihoya ba'ila chai, because the husband wasn't alive. Aval kanshu chai. So Tosfos argues in Rashi, says the husband's alive and he wants to provide something for her. Anu achreha amen. U'ba'ila hitel al chachamim she'efsikula. The Baal told the Chachamim, you go ahead and tell me how much I should give her. And therefore, since there was no reason for them not to answer amen, why? Because there was no negativity whatsoever. Like Rashi, there was a negativity, the fact that it was dead, and you needed the Shita to answer up. It's speaking since death is inevitable, so they answered amen rather than a Shemeres Yavam, which was unfortunately not such a nice thing because she didn't have any children. Mashen King Taisus learned that the husband was still alive. He put her on Bezdin to decide how much makeup to give. They said an amount. She, I don't know if facetiously she agreed to it or didn't agree to it. Regardless, they answered amen. And since we're telling Maisa about the daughter of Nakdim Ben Gurion, here's another Maisa. The Talmidim going after him. He saw a young girl. She was gathering grain. She was gathering barley from between the feces of the animals of the Romans, of the Arabs. Since Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai since she saw Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai, Nisatva Besara, she covered her hair, but Amru Lefanav and stood in front of him, and Amru Loi Rebbe, Parnaseni, take care of me. Amaloi Biti Miyad, who are you? Amaloi Bas Nakdim Ben Gurion, Ani. Amaloi Biti, Moment shall base of Vicha. Hey, halach, where did it go? Amaloi Rebbe, Loi Kidain Matla Masla. Don't they say the following mashal? Yerushalayim, Melech Mamin. If you want Mamin to be like Melach, meaning to be like Melech preserves, if you want your money to be preserved, Chaser, you have to be mechasa your money, meaning you have to give tzedakah. If you mechasa your money, you give tzedakah, then as a result, your mama will be preserved. In other words, the father didn't give enough tzedakah. Rimi lo chesed, or he didn't do enough chesed. The shall base chamech heichen hu. Rabbi Yochanan Zaki said, I know you married wealthy also. Where's the money from your father-in-law? So Amuloi, they mixed together, and the fact that my father's money was gesholt in the money because he didn't give tzedakah, it affected the money of my father-in-law. Amuloi, Rabbi, Zacharata, said the daughter of Nakdim ben Gurion, Rabbi Yochanan Zaki, you remember, Kishecha Samta al Kesuvos, when you signed my Kesuba, do you remember? Tamidav said, listen to this, guys. Said Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai to his Talmidim, Zacharani, I remember, Keshechasamti al Kesubaso, when I signed the Kesuba, Shelzu, the Hayisi Koiraba, and I read it, Elef Alafim Dinrei Zahav, Mi Beis Avia, Putz Mishel Chania. How much is 1,000 times 1,000? It's 1,000,000. It's 1,000,000. She had 1,000,000 golden dinarim. And that's only from her father, not including the father-in-law, the Nedunya. Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai Omar, Bachar Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai started to cry Omar, Ashreichem Yisrael, this man shoysim ritzonish lamakam ein kolum of lashon shaletas behed. This man shein oysim ritzonish lamakam moisim biyadum shvela. Rashi says the Arabs are low people because they live in the desert and intense. Lo biyadum shvela ela biyad beimasa shalom shvela. Ben Akdim ben Gurion le'avet tzedakah. Afraid Gemara, you tell me you didn't give tzedakah, but Tanya. Amru l'avol nibim ben Gurion. It says regarding Akdim ben Gurion, kishoy yotzim beisa, when he would leave his house, lebeis hamedrash, to go to beis hamedrash, play melis to go to beis medrash. They would take a garment of fine wool, they would put it in front of him, and he would walk on top of it. And after he would pass by, the Naniyim would come and they'd fold it up afterwards, and they would go ahead, and they would take it. So you see, it was a tremendous Baal Tzedakah. He didn't do the Shema, he did it for his own covet. He gave tzedakah, but not to the extent that he could have given based upon his wealth. Kedami inshi, like people say, from gamla shichana. According to the camel, is its load. The stronger the camel, the bigger the load. The richer the person, the more he's mechuyev to go ahead and provide tzedakah. Tanya, Amr Abalasav Reb Tzaddik, Era bin Nechama. I should see Nechama, meaning this is a lashon of I shouldn't see Nechama. It's a lashon sagina. I shouldn't see comfort. Im loyri sia, if I did not see the daughter of Nakdim ben Gurion, she was gathering grain, gathering barley from between the hooves of the horses in Akko. I applied the following pasuk to her. Right? If I do not go ahead and put my heart, that means trying to call Yisrael to watch the Torah. Right? They'll go out, and don't altikri gidei your goats. Ella give you sayich, your bodies, that you're going to have to go out. Your body's going to have to go out among the animals to go ahead and be malakit grain. Okay, we'll stop over here. Share will be tomorrow morning, probably 9:30.